podcast with myself, Jared Klein. Thank you for coming to episode 19. It's always nice to get some feedback and hear from the consistent viewers of the podcast. It's awesome. Thank you for coming out today to take time to kind of listen to this on your drive to work or whenever you are listening to this. So obviously we have a guest on today. Gerbz, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. First off, thank you for taking the time today. I know we adjusted a little bit so we can watch some football today. But yeah, thank you for taking the time on, I don't really know if it was short notice, probably a week and a half in advance, but I hope it didn't affect anything too much.
No, not at all. No, it was cool. Like I said, like we talked about earlier, like it's my first podcast. No one's ever asked me to be on a podcast, so I was honored. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, yeah, no problem, man. I always like actually hearing that it's people's first. It's always a good experience because you never really know. Like I like it because it's our first interaction face to face, right? I mean, we connected on Twitter a little bit, but it's our first face to face conversation. But it's always nice to kind of see how people are, I guess, on the mic, like on a hot mic and having it recorded and everything. It's very interesting. But yeah, so if you could introduce yourself to the people, and also to me, introduce yourself, go as shallow or as deep as you want to, and then we'll kind of jump into what we want to talk about today.
Cool. So yeah, I'm Gerbz. My real name's Christian. But like I was talking to Jared earlier about, the Gerbz nickname kind of came from my IRL friends. Anyways, so my best friends call me Gerbz. It's even weird. Lately, I've been reconnecting with people from high school who just call me Christian, and it catches me off guard. I like almost, it feels weird now. That's that. I've been designing 4 years now, 5 years. Got into it my freshman year of college. I actually went in as a finance major.
Interesting.
I was going to do like big data analysis type stuff. Partied a little too hard. By a little too hard, I mean, it's about all I did. So first year of college didn't really work out. Ended up leaving that school. And going to community college just to kind of wrap up, switch majors, obviously, finish up basics and everything. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of it's been a long, I don't know how far I can go with like words, but it's been a pain in the ass.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay, cool.
You're good.
I mean, I graduated in high school in 2018. It's 2022. I still probably have 2.5 years of college just because of, leaving that one school, going to community college, going back to that school not taking any of my graphic design classes from community college. So it's been a fun time. I'm on my third college now. I'm doing online at Arizona State, just while I work and do everything. So it's a juggling act for sure. Like most of us, I started out doing esports, not even really esports at that point. It was, Call of Duty Twitter designs, making headers and profile pictures for people, which thank God I don't have to do that anymore. Not anything against people who love doing that stuff, but it was not for me. I'm thankful it gave me my start, but it was not for me at all. Then I kind of moved. Really, my first big step while I was still in teams and stuff was product design. I got really into like, customizing mouses, headsets, and team liveries and stuff. That was kind of really my big start into where I am now. But I want to say it was a long journey because it felt really long for me. But at the same time, some people, I got really lucky. I worked my ass off for, I want to say January of 2021 was when I joined the comm, making Twitter headers, and now I'm an apparel designer for, one of the biggest orgs in America. So it's been a crazy journey. to
I,
say the least.
it's always cool to hear people like how they got into the industry or whatever industry they're in and how they got in and where they compare that to where they are now. It's really cool. Like it's so many different walks of progression. It's really interesting to hear.
Yeah, it's definitely been it's been a trip. It's it feels like I work all the time, but at the same time, it feels like my days just kind of disappear. Half the time, I don't know what day it is. Just I know when my weekends are, but if you ask me in the middle of the week, I have no clue. It's just another day. I do the same thing every day. My boss texts me every morning at the same time. Um, just work,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
not where I want to be yet. So
Mm-hmm.
I
I
don't know
mean,
that I'll ever be where I want to be.
yeah, that's the truth, isn't it? I mean, do you love? I mean, I my guess is that you love what you're doing now, right?
I do, I do, I do. It's like any job, it has its moments.
Mm-hmm.
Um, more so just overwhelming. Not that I don't like any part of it or anything like that. It's just sometimes it gets to the point where I'm like I'm getting hit from so many different directions. Especially now. Um, like I was an intern as an apparel designer. That was the only thing I was doing. They brought me on because they saw one of my portfolio projects, um, and that was really cool. Um, but then obviously I couldn't post apparel stuff anymore because I can't do stuff for other teams, and I obviously can't post what we're working on.
Mm-hmm.
So I started doing socials. Not really started, but I that was my main focus outside of work was doing socials and game day and esports designs for Optic, and just as practicing motion, practicing layouts, everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then eventually they saw that and they were like, "Yeah, we're gonna need you to stop posting those too because we need you to do them for us." So now I kind of, besides 3D, which is something I really want to learn, I just do not have the time. I've kind of become a jack of all trades.
Mm-hmm.
Really, anytime anyone needs something last minute,
Mm-hmm.
I I'm the one they come to right now.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask about that. I mean, since you've kind of been talking, I know maybe some things are a little restricted to talk about, but I guess when it comes to your job, a lot of people, at least people that are getting into esports, they see apparel designer and it's like, oh, you probably just make T-shirt designs.
Oh
So, exactly, I feel like that was gonna be your reaction. If you could
yeah,
just talk about, obviously, to the extent that you can talk about what you
yeah,
do
of
on like a
course.
day to day, just to give people the understanding.
So on a day to day, obviously there is t-shirt designs
Mm-hmm.
being made. It's just a part of what we do. Um, it is not my specialty. I've made some really really dope t-shirt designs in the past, and I get a good one out here and there.
Mm-hmm.
um, but that is probably one of the most frustrating sides of my job. You would think the more complicated stuff would be, but just having to have an unlimited supply of t-shirt designs at all times. My boss is also one of those people where it's we'd rather do more now so that we don't have to do more later.
Mm-hmm.
um, so like the stuff we're working on now, I have 10 to 30 versions of every single item that we're working on at
Wow.
any given moment. um, different colorways, different changes, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing comes with graphics. Like when we need to do a graphic tee, like my illustrator is, I use every inch of not only that canvas. My favorite thing about Illustrator is that you can just throw shit
All over the place.
everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
um, so yeah, I mean, I have an insane amount of stuff that will never see the light of day just because of the sheer amount that we do just to stay ahead,
Mm-hmm.
not have to rewind and do stuff again, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
um in terms of the non t-shirt stuff, um a lot of it comes down to just finding inspo in other places, looking at other streetwear brands, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a long process. I mean, we were kind of behind when I started, but like now I'm working on stuff for next fall. Just because of how far ahead this process is. Um, Typically, we're 6 to 8 months. That's where you want to be at least.
Mm-hmm.
On the low end, like 3 to 4, but even that's pushing it sometimes. But I mean, a lot goes into that stuff. I mean, you have to have like your basically two-dimensional mock-ups, so just your Illustrator type flat depiction.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it starts. We kind of get that, we get it approved, we get the changes made, stuff like that. Then we make the real versions most of the time. Sometimes it's not really necessary, but that's where I come in because that's kind of where I specialize is, making realistic mock-ups of, shit that doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm. With like the stitching and making sure it's all
Exactly.
kind of
Yeah. And
neat.
that was something I was really proud of when I started doing apparel and I try to do it when I did everything, and I like to think that it helped me get where I'm headed now,
Mm-hmm.
is I feel like, and I feel like 75% of esports work, regardless of whether it's socials, graphics, apparel, whatever, it's all a little derivative. And not that that's a bad thing, but I've never been one to like, oh, I'm gonna do the exact same thing as these people and have more success than them.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not a thing, and I feel like people can't or won't grasp that. Um, and so that was like when I was doing apparel, I was like, okay, I made this apparel design. Somebody else made this apparel design. What can I do to this one to make it not better, but down to the details? Like, I didn't throw a graphic on a mock-up. This is a product that I made. And a big part of that was I quit telling people that I made it. I would just post it as a product.
Mm-hmm.
And I considered it a success if no one was like, oh, that's obviously a mock-up.
Mm-hmm.
I just, my specialty is getting these things as photorealistic as possible. And that comes in handy, especially like now. I don't know if you saw like the Team Summertime merch announcement
I did not.
from a few days ago, but they're doing an event, and none of those photos are actual photos of the merchandise. We did not get those samples in time, so all of those, I mean, tags, labels, everything. They're as close as they're getting to us taking photos of them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of steps to apparel. I mean, you have those first two, making the realistic mocks. Then you have to what are called for the cut and sew stuff, which is like your non like t-shirt graphics and stuff. You do what's called tech packs, which are, I mean, they're basically charts of like this goes here, this goes here, this is what this is made of. Here's your mock-ups. We're using this color of thread.
Mm-hmm.
Here's all of your Pantone colors.
Mm-hmm.
And those were terrifying when I started. Now they've gotten a little easier. Like I have a template and everything. I just kind of throw stuff in there, and
Mm-hmm.
it all works out. My boss double checks everything. But yeah, it's definitely been over the last 6 months. It's been a learning experience. Just going from here's what I want to make. I make it and then I post it on Twitter, and
Mm-hmm.
people either like it or they don't.
Mm-hmm.
To here's what I made. Here's what I made again and again and again and again. And then it goes in for approval, and they're like, yeah, this is not it.
Mm-hmm.
And it just,
Mm-hmm.
poof, disappears forever.
So,
but yeah.
How important do you see like apparel to? I mean, obviously, Optic is like Optic Gaming. It's
Yeah.
That's they're held on the pedestal of like one of the upper echelon, if not the upper echelon organization within esports. So, how important has apparel been? I mean, I know the planning and everything. You said it's way out, but like, how important has it been to the brand when it comes to brand building? Do you think? Obviously,
honestly,
you can't really get super.
Well, no,
super
I don't
detailed
think that really
metrics when it
touches
comes
on
to
any of
that.
that. But for
Or
for
not just
Optic,
or not just Optic, like for
yeah,
any
I
esports
mean,
organization.
I think there's two sides. I'd say for Optic, um, I don't think it is a big, especially now. I don't think it's a big part of brand growth. Um, from my position, my goal is more so to take the fan base that, obviously I didn't build,
Oh
these
yeah.
people built over the past, what is it, 15, 16 years at this point. Um, and try to, I guess the term would be like control the narrative. Like I want to get us out of this like black t-shirt, hat with a logo on it type phase. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, every single brand needs those key, fundamentals. Like you need your base stuff, whether it's for people who are on a lower budget or people who just like want the simple stuff. You need it, but I feel like, like I was talking about earlier, like a lot of that stuff is just so derivative of each other. You know, Nobody wants the 500th black T-shirt from your brand with a logo on it. It's just not, or I mean, not to say that it won't sell. Like that's an issue I've been having. I don't want to say like arguments with my peers about, but it's definitely gotten close where it's like, I wish they would do more, and they're like, but it sells. Like I know, but if they were to do more, that would also sell. Like it's just because doing the bare minimum works doesn't mean you do the bare minimum. And I think a lot of people in this comm are kind of like that. And I think that's the difference between like the people who have more success than others is you try to push the boundaries. But yeah, I think with Optic, I'm really just trying to get our fan base into another direction. Because gamers are not the most fashionable people on the planet. It's just how it is. Not to say that I'm like, fancy schmancy fashionable, but I'm definitely trying to make them a little uncomfortable. Just so we evolve as a community. Because I definitely think it needs to happen. For other brands, I think it can either help or it can be a downfall for some people. I think 100 Thieves, obviously 100 Thieves had Nate Shot. So that's a big
help.
It's Nate Shot.
From the start, yeah.
But and then obviously they were the the hoodie org, which people are definitely. It's been funny to me because like we've been dropping more merch lately, obviously just because Optic had a bunch of bullshit the past few years, between owners and everything. So we're kind of back on our bullshit. But people have even been calling us like a merch org. And I was like, if y'all are calling us a merch org now, like wait till the rest of the year because we're not stopping. Y'all haven't seen anything yet, unfortunately. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's a good thing to have for your brand, but I think there's a lot more factors that come before apparel.
I feel like for like an amateur organization, I feel like apparel isn't super necessary. I feel like you have to develop reputation before you start to become like I think before apparel starts to become useful, you have to develop some identity or reputation within the industry because you want to come out with apparel so the people that are either in your organization or support your organization will wear it. But I think obviously it's a business, right? If you're going to come out with apparel and you don't have means of selling that apparel, right? Like to where you're not like with Optic, you come out with a collection, people are going to buy it because it's an established brand. It's like you said, going back to what you said, whether you push the boundaries or not, Optic it's going to sell. But like if you're like just coming into the scene, you have a few handful of teams and maybe they're mediocre at best. Apparel isn't something you should truly like, I don't want to say waste time on, but go into thinking about to the extent of what you're doing.
Oh
Because
yeah, no, not at all. Like there's
I just don't think
yeah.
it's worth it at that point. Like there's so many
Well,
different
and I mean
facets
it's
of an organization that have to be focused on before apparel
yeah.
becomes useful.
Yeah, I also think I mean it takes so many people, you
Mm-hmm.
know. You have me as a designer, you have my boss as a designer, who's also dealing with, other stuff, dealing directly with Hex, stuff like that. Which thankfully just let me just make cool shit. I don't need to deal with the politics. Um, then we have, an e-commerce manager who handles like the website, SKU
Mm-hmm.
numbers, everything like that. Steven's the best. And then Rolando, who is kind of he was my boss, but for Envy, and then obviously we merged. Um, and so he kind of handles all the sourcing, manufacturers, dealing with trying to explain stuff to people in China and how we want it built. Um, which again, God bless them because I don't have to do it. Um, but yeah, it takes an army. And I don't think I mean we were just talking like 100 Thieves. Obviously 100 Thieves was big the second they came out. Like there was no growth period for them. You maybe had like a little bit of a discovery period where people were like figuring out who they were and like who was running them.
Mm-hmm.
But they had hundreds of thousands of followers the day they launched.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which not to say it's unfair, but I think it's an unfair comparison to like compare them to like other teams that are trying to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And I think merch only comes into play when you're at this level, or at least merch at this level. But I think that's also why people have kind of fallen into this trap of like Sector 6 and all of these other apparel services. They have these random designers that are doing the bare minimum, and then they're taking like a huge percentage of the profits and stuff like that. And I think they're a plague in the gaming community, to be honest. But they work for smaller teams. I'm not gonna lie. I have a Sector 6 jersey in my drawer right now, because I started on a sniping team last January. And so I think if you don't care about making money and it's just like I want our players to rock this for these smaller teams, and
Mm-hmm.
cool. But unless you're at this 500,000 follower and above area, I don't know that it's worth it, or that it's going to do anything for you, to do anything besides like here's our logo on a t-shirt. It's how it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that it's a bad thing. I mean, from my perspective, it's boring, but at the same time, like these people care more about winning championships than they do about selling merch.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a mindset. People like us and 100 Thieves want to be in the gaming world, but not in the gaming world. We're focused on, you can go on StockX and buy 100 Thieves merch right now.
Yep.
Like they're in a different world now. And I think that's kind of where we're trying to be as well. And a lot of these gaming teams just don't care.
See, I think 100 Thieves, they're I think they're a good example at bridging that gap between gaming and because I think
100%.
I think there's a lot of organizations that want to be gaming and streetwear. That's like what the niche is now basically becoming. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just focusing on developing an organization that's successful and winning championships. It's like, okay, we want to do that, but we also want to do streetwear stuff. But I think it starts from the bottom, from inception, and where 100 Thieves did it really well. I mean, Nate Shot came out with it, but like he was also posting personal stuff. Like his personal stuff was all about like that's when he was posting a lot about shoe unboxings and
Dude, I loved that era of Nate Shot was so much fun.
like starting to dive and really molding his own personality around that,
Mm-hmm.
and then just coming out with a organization that does that. It was a pretty seamless transition because his
Yep.
following was already familiar. Okay, this is 100 Thieves. What are they coming out with? Oh, they're coming out with a apparel collection, that Nate Shot helped curate and stuff. So
Yeah.
that was kind of, I feel like for Optic to get into that sense, like to bridge that gap, I think there has to be some sort of transition from like something similar to that. Like I know the main faces of Optic are into streetwear, but they're not known for that. To where when Nate Shot was posting that content, people were coming to his channel to see an Air Force One unboxing.
Yeah, I think, and I think we're getting into that. Especially, I think Hector's getting really into that. We've been doing a lot of stuff with the Private Necessities guys, who are they basically run like a Flight Club, Stadium Goods type store here in Dallas.
Okay.
We're actually doing an event with them at SneakerCon. Next week. It's the same weekend as the TST event. So we're doing like an Optic X SneakerCon, a couple of t-shirts, and an event with them. So I definitely think at least the people who are paying attention to Hector, it's kind of the same thing, as that transition with Nate, where he was focused on streetwear and sneakers and stuff like that. But really, I think, and I don't know what our approach really is. Like I said, I just make the stuff. But what we have coming out in the next couple of months is it's gonna change things. At least in my head, it's gonna change things. Somehow, I don't know how, we're up for Apparel of the Year at the Esports Awards.
Because you're Optic.
Probably, yeah. I mean, we haven't. Not that what we've done is bad, but like at least when I found out about that nomination, not when everybody else found out about that nomination. When I found out about that nomination, we had really only dropped like those chenille logo hoodies that everyone freaked out about, which they're cool, but that was it. That was the only thing we had dropped in a year. And so I can't see us. I have some cool shit coming out before Esports Awards. So maybe it'll change, because I know it's a panel vote now instead of that being a fan award. The panel actually is 75% of that vote. So hopefully that stuff can come out in time. But I really can't see us winning it this year. Next year, we're a lock. There's no way, with what we have coming out, there's absolutely no way we don't win that award. It's just
I think that's really, because I know Liquid was like super highly touted to win that. Don't they come out with like consistently pretty cool stuff?
Liquid, they were. Was
that a couple years ago? Like that they.
It was probably last year. I mean, they're still coming out with a bunch of stuff. It's just not. It's not what they were doing. I will never hate on Liquid, because Liquid inspired the collection that I did that got me this job. So, props to them. But yeah, it's always pretty much, Liquid, 100T, FaZe, G2 I think is in there this year. Us, and then I think that's it, at least for this year. FaZe has done some cool collabs this year. I can't speak on like the quality of anything. I haven't touched any of it. 100 Thieves, I think they're doing what works for them. I was really hyped on the 100 Thieves stuff when they first brought everything out, because they were doing custom cut and sew garments, everything like that. And then I think they've kind of just like, oh, this works. We're just going to keep doing this, which is cool. They have a couple of cool pieces here and there, where I'm like, oh, that's dope. But for the most part, they're doing what sells. And I can't, as much as it pains me, because I know what I do every day, like I can't blame them for just doing what works. But yeah, no, I mean, I would like to think that, the next few collections I have coming out are stuff that no one has done. So it should be fun.
Yeah, I guess so. One more thing on like apparel and everything. Um, do you? I mean, we talked about this a little bit, but like for like that middle ground organization that like has already proven themselves, how much emphasis do you think they should put on? Like obviously developing apparel, but developing apparel to attract a fan base. Do you think that's a thing like within esports, or is it just
I
an add-on to the brand already?
I think there's a way to do it. I just don't think anyone's done it yet.
Okay.
Um, and not to any fault of their own. I think a lot of people don't know how to do it. Not in the sense that people don't know how to design merch,
Mm-hmm.
but there's so much that goes into it. I mean, there's ways to learn. I mean, I have friends that do this shit all by themselves. Like I could not imagine, having to design it, spec it, do measurements and everything, send it to a manufacturer in Thailand and try and explain everything to them like that. You know, I props to them. Like they will always be I will always look up to them more than I like value what I do, just because they do it by themselves and they did it by themselves. They learned by themselves,
Mm-hmm.
which a lot of us do as just in our work. Like we learn from each other, we learn from ourselves. Um, but that stuff is just thankfully I don't know if you saw the Patchwork collection I just had come out a couple of
Mm-hmm.
weeks ago for the Call of Duty League. The day that company hit me up, I was going to try and figure that shit out for myself. I was like, I'm going to get this sweatshirt made, by myself. I'm going to find a manufacturer, whatever. And that morning, I had a business meeting with them. And they were like, yeah, we want to produce all of them and then pay you. I was like,
Sure.
okay,
Yeah.
sick. Works for me. Um, but yeah, these actually, I don't have all of them yet, but
So you designed every
I
single
do
one
have
of
the
them?
object one. Yep.
That's awesome.
And these are, I mean, they're crazy, crazy heavy, crazy good quality. Um,
All cut and sew paneling and everything.
all cut and sew paneling. I want to say there's like 26 different panels on each hoodie. And it was kind of a, you know, it's been, when was that meeting? Probably, I signed that contract before my internship started. So that was probably April is when I started working with them. And then they just got released. They should be getting shipped out in probably a month. Um, but yeah, it was a trip and a half.
If you don't, I mean, you may or may not. Just say if you can't answer this. So if you design something like that with, I mean, my guess they outsource you as an apparel designer, so you can, do that. Do you get commission per every one sold?
That's not what the contract says, but technically, yes.
Okay.
Technically, I'm getting 7.5% of total revenue, I believe. Which essentially boils down to, I want to say, and I don't know what costs are. We haven't had this conversation or anything.
Mm-hmm.
When I was doing the math based on what I thought they would sell for and what I thought they could make them for, I was going to be making like $5 a hoodie. Which again, like, isn't crazy, but it was kind of something I had already made.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of had to form it to each team. And my hoodies were getting made. Like, I don't care.
That's true.
If I can make a few $100 and get my hoodies made and have other people wear my stuff, cool, man. I'm already working. Like, I'm getting paid. I don't care.
And I saw you were able to. Did you release that? Yeah, you did. You were able to release that in your portfolio, so that's good.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know if I was allowed to, but I did. They, I was putting it on there anyways, but
Mm-hmm.
they didn't have a problem with it so far.
So I heard some. I don't want to say. I don't want to call it controversy, but it was one thing about the LA Thieves hoodie with the Thieves word mark.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can talk on that, but I noticed it when I was talking to Isaac. I think we were off camera, so I don't think we talked about it like when we were live. But in your tech pack here and in the portfolio, it has the Thieves, the script, and then scrolling down to the final product, those cream panels were replaced with the LA Thieves
Uh-huh.
logo. I don't know if you can talk on that at all, but I thought it was pretty interesting.
I mean, who's
Was it
gonna
like
stop me, right?
licensed
He,
with
I mean, okay. So here's the deal. When those got announced, everything had been approved.
Okay.
Let's just start there.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
When those were announced, when I teased them months ago, they were approved. Everything was approved by the people that needed to approve them, by each of the teams, by the league, signed on the dotted line. Then we announced them, and Mr. What the fuck is his name? John Robinson takes it to the timeline. Replies to our tweet going,
Twitter.
when you don't, or something about how, like, when you don't have the rights, or when you only have the rights to the actual logo and not this, but you want to use the 100 Thieves branding. And it pissed me off. Bad. One, because that was my favorite hoodie that I had made. I thought it was a really good idea to work the 100 Thieves script into it, but it's saying LA instead. And then it got cleared. I had to make a lot of compromises on those hoodies already. And that was one, like, when it got approved, I was like, yes, like, this is the one people want. This is everybody's favorite. This is going to be sick. And then we had to change it a week before release. And it just, I don't know, man. It pissed me off because it made us look bad. Just because then you have people replying to his, like, oh, well, obviously it wasn't approved. Because we came back at him and we were like, these have been approved by all of the teams and the league. And then you have the kids in the I'm going to call them kids because that's what they are. And the replies going like, well, obviously he didn't approve it if he's getting mad about it now. And it's like, yeah, the CEO didn't approve a merch collaboration. Like, that's not how companies work.
It's not his job.
But it was approved. So can we quit acting like, we were the bad guys and we did it without asking? But yeah, it irked me. Like, we have beef.
Was there any other? I mean, obviously their community maybe, but was there any other backlash behind that, or was it just that and that was it? And
it was just that.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you want to, for that specific issue, people were lighting me. I blocked probably 80 people, like, during the release of those hoodies, just because I didn't want to see shit. Especially when CDL Intel was tweeting it out. Those dudes were mean. People on Twitter are mean, man.
Gets clicks.
It does.
Gets engagement. Unfortunately.
It does. But, I just mute them, block them, move on with my day. I'm happy with them. I know the people whose opinions matter to me like them. So, what do I have to complain about?
Exactly.
Or be upset about?
Yeah, exactly.
It is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was Isaac and I were talking about it, and he's like, yeah, did you see the patchwork stuff that came out? And I was like, no. So I went to it. He's like, yeah, this original mock-up was different than what's on the website. And I was like, I wonder why. And